And welcome back, everybody. It's so good to be back. The final week of 2025, back from Casa de Campo, where we had an incredible Christmas vacation. Really appreciate the good people at Casa de Campo. In fact, if you want to plan a family vacay or golf vacay, go to casadecampo.com. Well, our travels will continue as we head out to the Rose Bowl on Wednesday for Alabama, Indiana, which sets us up now for the Pigskin Prognosticator of Prodigious Proportions. And if you listen to us, you just might wake up, well, we'll say Saturday morning, independently wealthy. This is our last Pigskin Prognosticator for 2025. We'll be back, obviously, in 2026 as we follow the CFP all the way until the end. Oh, by the way, we're recording this December 20th. On this day, 1982, was the final game for Paul Bear Bryant on the sidelines for the University of Alabama. They were at the Liberty Bowl in Memphis. It was so bitterly cold. In that game, Alabama beat Illinois 21-15, despite Tony Eason throwing for over 400 yards. Eason also threw 3 interceptions, all picked off by Jeremiah Castile, who was named the Liberty Bowl MVP. They carried the legendary Bear Bryant off the field on this cold night for win number 323, and exactly 4 weeks to the day, he would pass away in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the end of a legendary and iconic coaching career. On this day, 1982, Alabama over Illinois. Alabama, by the way, that season wound up 8-4. They started out the year 6-0, number 1 in the country. Things faltered, but nevertheless, they ended on a high note. All right. Let's get to the picks, starting with the New Year's Eve game, Miami, Ohio State. The Buckeyes favored by 9.5 in the Cotton Bowl. That seems like a lot. And the one thing that I wanted to mention, and you've heard it, I'm sure, from other people, a year ago in the first go-round of the expanded CFP, all the teams with first-round byes lost. Ohio State and all these teams with first-round byes have been off for almost a month. Miami 2 weeks ago beat Texas A&M in College Station, which was a monumental achievement considering the offense was absolutely stifled that day. Texas A&M came into that game with the best third down defense in the country, and Carson Beck and the Canes couldn't figure anything out. They ultimately did win, but thanks mainly to an incredible defense. And Julian Sayin, the Ohio State quarterback, will have to deal with that again. Did not deal with the pressure from Indiana very well in the Big Ten Championship. He will even have more pressure from the Miami Hurricanes. Their front is healthy, they're deep, and look for Miami just to put the clamps on Julian Sayin and Ohio State. I really believe if you look at the roster, though, Ohio State has a better overall roster than Miami, especially on the offensive side. I think in the end, Ohio State wins to advance, but I'm taking Miami and the 9.5 in the Cotton Bowl. That's the New Year's Eve game. Meantime, triple header on New Year's Day. We'll save Alabama for last, by the way, since we're headed out there. Oregon is a 2-point favorite against Texas Tech. Really pretty interesting that both of these teams had to fly to the Orange Bowl in Miami. Of all the teams that made the playoffs, they had the longest trek from where their campuses are located to their destination, the Orange Bowl. Again, I find this interesting. Texas Tech, of course, has never played in a game of this magnitude in their history. And coming into the playoffs, among the teams that were ranked 27th or better, Texas Tech had the 68th ranked strength of schedule. Now think about that. Of all the top teams, top 27 in the country, Texas Tech was not only behind those teams, but ranked 68th in strength of schedule. Great season. Undefeated for Texas Tech and the Red Raiders, but now they take on Oregon. Clearly, this will be their toughest test to date. And I thought this was interesting, too. Dan Lanning, since he took over from Mario Cristobal, who went to Miami, and Lanning became the head coach at Oregon, and he's done a terrific job. He's 47-7 overall as head coach of the Ducks, but all 7 losses have been to top 20 teams. Now, some of those have been very, very close, but for example, this year got stung pretty good at home by Indiana. A year ago got beat by 20 in the Rose Bowl by Ohio State. So Dan Lanning, in the games that are very meaningful as far as rankings go, the Ducks have not fared well, which I find very, very interesting. But in this game, I'm going to go with the team again. Texas Tech's been off for a month, and I think Oregon, having played 2 weeks ago, the tune-up against James Madison, having been there before, especially a year ago, a lot of those kids are back. I like Oregon covering the 2 against Texas Tech. All right, we'll save the Rose Bowl for last, the granddaddy of them all. Let's go to the Sugar Bowl. Ole Miss, Georgia, the rematch from the regular season, that game in Athens, in which Ole Miss scored in their first 5 possessions, touchdowns. Boom, 35 points right out of the gates. And many of those touchdowns were quick hitting touchdowns, short drives. And when it came to the fourth quarter and Georgia mounted their comeback, even though there was a 4th down play, Georgia was going for it with a lot of time to go. Ole Miss had stopped them on this 4th down, and it appeared that they had. The Georgia running back kept his legs turning, and they did get the 1st down, went on to score a touchdown, went on to beat Ole Miss. I think it's going to be a similar type game. And here's the deal. In my mind, 2 thoughts. Georgia absolutely plastered a talented Alabama team in the SEC championship. I don't think anybody's playing better than Georgia right now. Ole Miss is a super talented team, really, really good, but they're not deep, especially on the defensive side. And in that game in Athens, when it was all tallied up, the frontline defensive guys for Ole Miss played somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 plays. I mean, that's amazing, but they had nobody else, nobody better to put into the game. By the fourth quarter, they were completely out of gas. If you go back and watch the game, and I did the other day, early in the game, Ole Miss was right there going toe-to-toe. Even though they had a chance to stop that 4th down play, they were absolutely gassed. In order for Ole Miss to pull off this upset, somehow they need to keep those guys fresh. But again, it's the same guys they had when they lost in Athens. I think Georgia's the best team going right now. Favored by 6.5. I think Georgia covers in that game against Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. All right, let's go. Alabama, Indiana. Cannot wait to get to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Even though the weather's going to be lousy, I look forward to going out there and having that just incredible weather that you see on television with the mountains, San Gabriel Mountains in the backdrop. It is beautiful, but right now they've had rains in California. It's very wet out there. More rains expected this week. It's just one of those weather patterns. This is what I look at. A couple of things. Fernando Mendoza, great year, Heisman Trophy winner. And in recent memory, Heisman Trophy winners have not fared well in the big games, whether it's pressure, whether it's the fact they've had a layoff and they've been somewhat distracted, spending a week in New York. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see how Mendoza does against a very athletic, a very fast Alabama defense, a defense that tackles very, very well. Indiana's a 50-50 offensive ratio pass to run. Very talented offensive line is really, really good. But here's how I look at it. A couple of things. Strength of schedule. We hit on that with Texas Tech. Alabama overall strength of schedule this season, number 6 in the country. They've run the gauntlet. They've had some challenging games. They played Georgia twice. They won at Oklahoma. They went through that gauntlet in the middle of the year where they beat Vanderbilt in the fourth quarter. They came from behind and beat Missouri in the fourth quarter at Missouri. They beat Tennessee in a challenging game at home. I mean, it was just one tough game after another, and I think that gets you ready for a scenario like this. Indiana strength of schedule 44. So again, if you're comparing who they've played from start to finish, there's no question Alabama is more battle-tested. And oh, by the way, Stephen Daly is the best pass rusher for Indiana, almost unblockable against Ohio State. In the post-game celebration in Indianapolis, was jumping around with his teammates, popped his knee, hit it at a funny angle, and he's out. He will not play, and I think that is significant for Indiana as well. I like Alabama. I like Alabama to win this game, but I really like Alabama getting 7 points in this Rose Bowl game. By the way, the only other time Indiana played in the Rose Bowl, 1968. They took on USC, and the star running back, the Heisman Trophy winner for USC in that game, O.J. Simpson. Man, I love college football. I love the history. Cannot wait for all these games. But that's how I see the college football playoffs. We're laying off all the other bowl games. Didn't do well last week. For example, the Clemson-Penn State game. Leading up to the game, I really thought Clemson was the pick. But right before kickoff, it was released that Clemson was missing 24 players in that game. There's so many opt-outs. It's impossible to pick all these bowl games, even though some have been entertaining. Just from a picking perspective, it's impossible. So we're laying off that, sticking with the CFP because these teams mean business, and we'll see who advances now to the semifinals in the CFP. Thanks for watching, everybody. More to come on the Old Gap Box podcast and radio show. Again, if I don't hear from you between now and 2026, have a happy new year.